Sir. The voice was quiet, but it landed in the middle of the lobby like something dropped from a height. Please don't take that elevator. Robert Chadwick had been 2 steps from the parking elevator doors. When the child spoke, he had a briefcase in his left hand, his phone already unlocked in the right, and the particular looseness in his shoulders that a man carries when a very long week has finally gone the right way. The Wentworth Group merger had been signed that afternoon after 11 weeks of negotiation, and the reception in the hotel's 4th-floor suite had wound down an hour ago, and all Robert wanted was his car, his driver, and 40 minutes of silence on the way home to Rosedale. He stopped. She was standing near one of the lobby's marble columns, close enough to the elevator that she must have been watching for him. She looked to be about 8 or 9. Her hair was pulled into 2 braids, slightly uneven, the kind that get done in a hurry before school by someone who has somewhere else to be. She wore a blue cardigan over a striped shirt, both of them clean but careful, the clothes of a child whose mother washes things by hand and hangs them to dry. Her runners were white with a small grass stain on the left toe. Her eyes were steady. That was the thing that made Robert pause before anything else did. "What's that, sweetheart?" He kept his voice light. Behind him, Derek, his assistant, had already taken half a step forward. "There's a man by your car," she said. "The black one, the SUV, on level 2. He was lying under it. He had something silver. He slid it up against the bottom, and then he left." Derek's hand came to rest on Robert's elbow. "Sir, there are always people in the parking." "When?" Robert said to the girl. He ignored Derek's hand. "About 40 minutes ago. I was waiting for my mum. She works here. She cleans the rooms on 5. I'm not supposed to be in the parking garage, but I wanted to see if her shift was almost done, and I went down the back stairs." She paused. "He didn't see me because I was beside the service car. It's parked near the pillar on the left side, when you come off the elevator." Robert looked at her for a long moment. She did not look away. He set his briefcase down beside him, the way a man sets something down when he has decided, without quite deciding it yet, not to be in a hurry anymore. "What's your name?" he asked. "Tess." "Tess, how old are you?" 8.5. He crouched. His knees were not what they had been at 58, and the hotel lobby floor was marble and unforgiving. But he crouched because she deserved to be spoken to at eye level, and not from the considerable height of a man in a good suit who had just won something significant. "The man you saw," Robert said carefully. "Tell me what he looked like. Everything you remember. Take your time." She did not fidget the way most children do when adults ask them to be serious. She held both cuffs of her cardigan in her hands. An old habit, he would later understand, something she did when she was concentrating, and she thought. He had gray coveralls, the kind mechanics wear. There was a patch on the front, on the left side, near the chest. It was blue and white. I couldn't read the whole word, but it started with NNO, I think, or NA. And he had a beard, not a big one, short and dark. He had work boots, steel-toed. You can tell because the toe part is a different color. And there was a yellow stripe on the side of the boot, the reflective kind. Robert's assistant had gone very quiet. "He was on his phone," Tess continued, "while he was walking toward the car, not after, before. He said something." She paused. "He said tonight after 9, and then he said the black one, level 2. And then he said don't worry about the driver. And then he laughed a little, not a nice laugh, and he said easy money. And then he put the phone away, and he got down on the ground and he pushed something under your car." With his right hand, he kept his left arm out for balance. The lobby of the Meridian Grand was not a particularly quiet place at 6:30 on a Thursday evening. There was a bar nearby with low music. A family with luggage was checking in at the front desk. 2 women in conference lanyards were talking near the windows. But Robert heard none of it because a 9-year-old girl had just told him that someone had put something under his car and that his driver was not a concern the man placing it had apparently bothered to account for. He looked at his phone. It was 6:34. His driver, Ken, was supposed to pick him up at 7. Ken knew the hotel well enough to pull the SUV into level 2 an hour before pickup to hold the space. Tonight, after 9. Robert had almost not stayed for the full reception. "Tess," he kept his voice very even. "Stay right here. Don't go anywhere. Do you understand me?" She nodded once. He stood. He did not call his head of personal security. He would think about that choice later, in the hospital corridor, with the particular clarity that arrives when you are sitting in a plastic chair at midnight, and the day is finally, fully over. He would think about why his first instinct had not been to reach for Roger Kells, the man who had been managing his personal security arrangements for 6 years, the man who had driven him to Pearson 11 times in 3 years, the man who that very morning, had walked Robert to the hotel entrance and said, very pleasantly, "Enjoy the reception. I'll have everything sorted by morning." He would think about the fact that he had not called Roger. He would think about what that meant, about what he had already understood without yet being willing to name it. Instead, he called 911. "This is Robert Chadwick. I'm in the lobby of the Meridian Grand Hotel on Bay Street. I have credible information that there is a device attached to the underside of my vehicle, a black SUV, license plate registered to Chadwick Holdings, level 2 of the underground parking. My driver may be en route to the vehicle as early as 6:50. I need police, and I need bomb disposal, and I need the street cleared. Now." He gave Ken's number to the dispatcher before she asked. Then he hung up. Derek had not moved. His face had done several things in the last 90 seconds and had not settled on any of them. "Derek, get the front desk manager. Tell her we need to clear the lobby toward the rear of the building. Tell her there's a police situation, and we need it done quietly, and we need it done now. Don't say what kind, just get it done." "Yes, sir." Derek moved. Robert turned back to Tess. She was still standing exactly where he had left her. Her hands were still holding her cuffs. Her face was calm, but underneath the calm, if a person was paying the right kind of attention, there was something that had been holding on very hard for a long time, and was only now beginning to be allowed to let go. "You did the right thing," Robert said quietly. "Whatever happens next, whatever anyone says, you did exactly the right thing." Her chin moved, just slightly. "I wasn't sure you'd listen," she said. "Most grown-ups don't." "No," he said. "They don't." He held out his hand. She looked at it the way children look when they are deciding something important, and then she put her small fingers into his. Her hand was cold. The cuff of the cardigan slipped down over his thumb. They walked toward the back of the lobby together. He did not run. He was aware, with the kind of clarity that sometimes arrives in the middle of bad situations, that running would frighten her. So he walked steady, as though they were heading somewhere entirely ordinary, as though the world was not perhaps about to come apart, on level 2 of the underground parking behind them. The police arrived at 6:49. The bomb disposal unit was 8 minutes behind them. Robert watched from the hotel's rear service corridor with Tess beside him on a bench that had been dragged from a supply room and which wobbled slightly on one leg. A uniformed officer, a woman whose name tag read Beaumont, stood close enough to be present and far enough to give them room. She had a notebook. She had not opened it yet. "My name is Officer Beaumont," she said, and she crouched the way Robert had crouched, level with Tess, taking her time about it. "Is it okay if I ask you some questions?" "Yes, ma'am." "You're very polite. My mum says it costs nothing." Beaumont's pen stilled for a moment on the page. Then she wrote that down, which Tess noticed, and which seemed to settle something in her. Tess told the officer everything she had told Robert, and then more. She told her the patch logo looked like a wrench inside an oval, not a circle, an oval. And she could draw it if she had something to draw with. She told her the man was right-handed, because he pushed the device under with his right hand and used his left arm for balance on the concrete. She told her the call had come in rather than gone out, because she had heard the ringtone first. And then she said the name. "He called him Rog," Tess said. "At the end of the call, he said thank you, and then he said Rog. Is that a name?" Officer Beaumont's pen did not change pace. But Robert, standing 8 feet away with his back against the corridor wall, felt something happen in his chest that was not a heart attack but was close enough to make him grateful for the wall. Roger. Rog. Roger Kells, who had been his head of personal security for 6 years, who had hired Ken, who had approved the vehicle and the parking arrangements, who had, on Monday morning, asked Robert what his schedule looked like for the rest of the week, and who Robert had told, without a second thought, about the Meridian Grand Reception and the Level 2 arrangement and the 7 o'clock departure time. Roger, who had also been copied on the internal memo Robert had sent last Friday, announcing a full financial audit of all personal accounts and firm disbursements beginning the following Monday. 4 days from now, an audit that Roger had helped schedule. Officer Beaumont was looking at him. Her face had not changed. Her face was the face of a woman who had spent 15 years watching other people's faces change and had learned to keep her own very still in those moments. "Mr. Chadwick," she said, "can you give me the full name?" "Roger Kells." His voice came out steadier than he expected. "My head of personal security. 6 years. He has access to all my travel records, my vehicle preferences, the hotel accounts." "Has he called you tonight?" Robert looked at his phone. He had silenced it during the reception. The screen showed 9 missed calls, 6 from Roger. The 9th had come in at 6:41, 7 minutes after Robert had called 911. Yes, Robert said. Beaumont nodded. Just once. Don't return those calls, sir. Not until we have more officers with you. Is there someone you trust who has no connection to your security arrangements? My solicitor, Robert said. Helena Drum. She handles my estate work. She has nothing to do with the firm and no connection to Roger at all. Call her from my phone. Helena Drum answered before the second ring and said nothing comforting, which was exactly what Robert needed. She said, "Where are you? I'm on my way. Don't speak to anyone from the firm. Don't answer Roger's calls. I'll be there in 25 minutes. She was there in 20. The device was confirmed at 7:12. Officer Beaumont told Robert at 7:13 quietly, while Tess was occupied with a granola bar someone had found in the back office and which she was eating, with the careful focus of a child who has learned to make things last. Magnetic charge, Beaumont said, attached to the chassis above the rear axle. Remote detonated, meaning it was waiting for a signal, meaning someone had planned to be watching. Robert thought about the stretch of road under the Gardner, where the traffic always slowed. He thought about Ken, who had a daughter in grade 3, and who was currently sitting with 2 uniformed officers in the hotel cafe, shaken and safe, having stopped for a coffee at 6:45 while waiting for the 7 o'clock. Ken had not gone down to level 2. He sat with that for a moment, the particular weight of it, the way luck that close never fully leaves a person. A detective from 52 Division arrived at 7:40. He looked at the 2 drawings Tess had done on the back of a hotel events schedule using Officer Beaumont's pen, the logo on the coveralls, the boot with the yellow stripe, and he looked at them for a long time without saying anything. How old did you say she was? He asked Beaumont, very quietly. 8.5. He nodded slowly. He said he would be back in 5 minutes and came back in 3. He showed Tess something on his phone. She leaned forward, looked for 2 seconds. That's the patch, she said. He stood up and walked back to Beaumont and spoke in a voice Robert couldn't hear. But he watched the detective's shoulders, and the shoulders of a man who has spent 20 years doing this and has just had something confirmed do a specific thing. A brief settling, a brief stillness. And Robert had spent 30 years reading people across boardroom tables, and he knew exactly what it meant. They had a name. Helena Drum came through the service entrance looking as she always did, which was like someone who had decided a long time ago not to be surprised by anything. She wore a gray blazer over a white shirt and carried a slim leather portfolio under one arm and assessed the corridor in approximately 3 seconds. She looked at Tess first, not Robert. "Hello," she said. "I'm Helena. I'm Mr. Chadwick's lawyer. What's your name?" Tess. That's a very good name. Is it all right if I sit here beside you? Yes, ma'am. She sat. She set the portfolio on her knees and did not open it. She turned her head very slightly toward Robert and said in the tone she used when she needed facts and not narrative, "Tell me." He told her in the short, clean sentences she had trained him to use over 15 years, because Helena had no patience for emotion when information was required. He told her about Tess and the lobby and the parking level. He told her about the device. He told her about Roger and the 6 missed calls and the audit scheduled for Monday. When he finished, Helena was quiet for several seconds. Then she said, "Roger helped you schedule the audit." He suggested the timing. "He gave himself until Monday," Helena said. "The audit would have found it. He didn't have Monday anymore." Robert looked at her. "How much?" he said. "We won't know until the auditors are in. But I've already called them. They'll be in the building at 7 tomorrow morning." She had called the auditors from the car on the way over. Robert had not asked her to. He thought about that, about the chain of decisions that had led to this corridor, to this granola bar, to this child with 2 uneven braids sitting on a wobbling bench. He thought about the audit moving to tomorrow instead of Monday. He thought about the reason it was moving. Then he looked at Tess, who had finished the granola bar and was now very carefully folding the wrapper into smaller and smaller squares. And he said nothing. Carla Whitaker came through the service corridor door at 7:58 in her housekeeping uniform. She was a slight woman with the same steady eyes as her daughter and the particular posture of someone who has been on their feet for 10 hours and has decided not to show it. She saw Tess on the bench and something moved across her face that lasted half a second before she controlled it. Half a second was enough. She crossed the corridor in 7 steps and pulled Tess against her without saying anything at all. Then she sat back and held her daughter by the shoulders and said, "You went down to level 2. "I was careful," Tess said. "You were careful." The 2 words did a great deal of complicated work. "Mum, there was a man. He put something under that man's car. I had to tell him." Carla looked up at Robert. He was still standing near the wall, and he had stopped managing his face some time ago. He crouched again. His knees registered their objection clearly. He crouched anyway. "Miss Whitaker," he said, "your daughter may have just saved my life. I'm not going to try to find the right words for that tonight because there aren't any. But I would like to speak with you when you're ready about how I might help, if you'll allow it." Carla studied him. Her eyes were the same as Tess's, steady, unhurried in their deciding. "My daughter," she said, "is 8 years old. She is not a story." "No," Robert said, "she's not. She's not a charity case either." "No." A long pause. Then, "All right, when I'm ready." Roger Kells was arrested at 9:17 at Pearson International, in the departures terminal, with a carry-on bag and a one-way ticket to Lisbon. The mechanic who had placed the device, traced within 4 hours to a subcontracting shop in Mississauga, gave Roger's full name before the detective had finished his second question, and gave 2 other names after that, which Helena described, with characteristic restraint, as likely to make several mornings very unpleasant for people who did not yet know their morning was coming. The preliminary financial review found $1.1 million in misdirected disbursements across 17 months. Most of it was routed through dummy invoices Robert had signed without scrutinizing. Some of it had moved through a personal oversight account Roger had structured very carefully to look exactly like a standard security retainer. Robert learned this at 11:30 from Helena, who read the numbers to him from her phone in the family lounge on the 4th floor of Mount Sinai, with the same tone she used for everything. He sat with it for a moment. 6 years, he said. 6 years, Helena said. He suggested the Monday timing for the audit. He gave himself 6 more weeks. You moved it because of tonight. She looked at him. Don't follow that road backward. You didn't wait. That's all that matters. He didn't follow it, but he sat with it for a minute anyway. In the plastic chair in the family lounge, with his shoes still on and his tie loosened, and the particular stillness that comes to a body that has been afraid for several hours and is only now beginning to understand that the fear is over. Carla Whitaker was in room 412. She had been coughing for 3 weeks, a dry, persistent cough she had attributed to the cleaning supplies on the 5th floor, which was not entirely wrong, but which had also been obscuring something else. Something the emergency doctor had found in the X-ray at 9:40 and had described to Carla in the careful, honest tone reserved for people who deserve to understand their own situation. Early stage, treatable, caught in time. She had not seen a doctor in 4 years because her benefits plan had a deductible she could not consistently meet, and the months when she could not meet it were most months. Robert did not know this when he arranged for her to be seen tonight. He had simply told Helena to make sure Tess's mother was seen by someone who would tell her the truth. Helena had arranged the rest, thoroughly and without fuss, the way Helena arranged everything. He learned about the cough and the X-ray and the 4 years from Tess, who told him in the family lounge at 11 o'clock with the same calm accuracy she brought to everything, while eating a sandwich from the cafeteria. "She thought I didn't know," Tess said. "But she coughs at night. The walls in our apartment are thin." Robert said nothing. "She's going to be okay," Tess said. It was not a question. She had decided it was true, and she said it the way a person states something they will not allow to be otherwise. "Yes," Robert said, "she is." Tess finished the sandwich. She had her cardigan around her shoulders, even though the lounge was warm. She had not taken it off since the lobby. He went back to room 412 at midnight. Carla was awake, propped against 3 pillows, the television dark. Tess was asleep in the recliner beside the bed, one braid half undone, her hands tucked under her cheek. Carla watched Robert come in and set a small wooden chair beside the bed, that he was looking up at her slightly rather than down, and she said nothing until he was settled. Then, "The doctor told me about the cough." "Yes," he said, early stage. "Yes." She was quiet for a moment. "I'm going to ask you something directly, Mr. Chadwick." "Please." "Are you here because my daughter saved your life, or because you feel you owe a debt?" Robert thought about it honestly. "Both," he said. "I'm not going to dress it up as one or the other. But I want you to understand that the debt is real, and I'm not going to dress it up as charity." She watched him. "I have been cleaning rooms in that hotel for 4 years," she said. "I have cleaned rooms for men like you." A pause. "Most of them don't see me." "I know." "Last January," Carla said, "outside the laundromat on Dundas. It was raining. A man in a dark coat held the door open, and then he came back and picked up 2 of my bags. Not one, both. I had my hands full with Tess in the cart. He asked her name. He waited for her to answer herself instead of asking me. and he said it was a good name, and he carried the bags to the bus stop, and then he left. Robert was very still. Tess talked about it for a week, Carla said. She said, "Mum, he asked my name, not yours, mine, like it mattered." She looked at her daughter sleeping in the recliner. She has a very good memory for faces. And she recognized the parking permit sticker in the corner of your car window from the day I parked near your building to drop her at school. She told me, "That's the coat man's car." I didn't know what that meant until tonight. The hospital room was quiet in the specific way. Hospital rooms are quiet at midnight, not peaceful exactly, but suspended. She recognized your car on level 2, Carla said. Not from the plates, from the sticker. That's how she knew it was yours. Robert sat with that. He sat with a January evening and a laundromat on Dundas, and 2 bags that had needed carrying, and a girl looking up at him from under the awning with those eyes, and a question he had asked not for any reason, not as a gesture, but simply because she was standing there. And it had seemed like the obvious thing to do, and he had not thought about it since. "Miss Whittaker," he said finally, "I'd like to speak with you about what comes next. Not tonight, tonight you rest, but whenever you're ready. There are things I'd like to offer, and I'll understand if you say no to some or all of them, but I'd like to offer them correctly. As a debt honestly owed, not a gesture." Carla was quiet for a moment. "Then come back tomorrow," she said. "We'll talk." "I will." "And Mr. Chadwick?" "Yes." "My daughter is not going to be a headline." "No," he said, "she's not. She is going to go back to school on Monday. She is going to hand in her book report on Wednesday. She is going to have a completely ordinary life, just with better circumstances than she has now. That is what I want for her, not a story." "That's what she deserves," Robert said. "Good." Carla settled back against her pillows. She closed her eyes for a moment, then opened them. "Then we understand each other." He stood. He looked at the 2 of them. The woman settling towards sleep in a hospital bed, with color returning to her face, and the girl in the recliner who had stood in a hotel lobby and said, "Please don't take that elevator," to a man she recognized from a single evening of ordinary decency 8 months ago, in the rain, outside a laundromat on Dundas Street. He reached over and turned off the small lamp near the door. In the hallway, Helena was waiting with documents and 2 cups of coffee that had gone cold. Robert took one anyway. He stood at the window at the end of the 4th-floor corridor, where the lights of the city spread out below. Ordinary and unhurried, the way a city looks at midnight, when nothing about it knows that anything has happened. He had held a door. He had carried 2 bags. He had asked a child her name and waited for her to answer. He had not done any of it for a reason. He had done it because it was raining, and her mother's hands were full, and there were bags that needed carrying, and it had seemed, at the time, like the only obvious thing. He stood at the window for a while in the cold glow of the city below and thought about all the things a person does without thinking that turn out, in the end, to be the only things that mattered. Then he drank his cold coffee and followed Helena down the corridor toward whatever the morning was going to ask of him.